Hello, everyone. Welcome to another rendition of the Exit Velo podcast. I'm Adam Cohen, and joined alongside me today is Jon Zaghloul, who is an incredible up-and-coming podcaster. But Jon, before we get started with a bunch of interview questions, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Adam. I know this has been kind of like a month in advance. We've been planning this, so it's fun to finally sit down and talk some shop. It's great to be on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I'm glad that we're able to get this working out. And let's start with our first question, the very beginning of your broadcast journalism career. So at 13 years old, you wanted to host your own sports podcast, and you started your own blog of sportstalkchicago.com. So what made you to start your own podcast?
Great question. When I was a kid, my dad really got me into sports. Grew up a Cubs fan. Not a Cubs fan anymore, but I grew up a Cubs fan. We watched Bulls, watched the Bears, all those three main teams. So I was very into sports as a kid. People used to call me an encyclopedia. I got Cubs history books here. That's what I do when I was a kid. I'd read Cubs history books from 1876 to whatever the year was, 2005 at the time. So I knew a lot about Cubs baseball in general was my number one. Then I got into football too, mainly. I loved basketball at the time, but now basketball is a joke. But anyways, so I was really loving sports a lot, especially around that age. And, the internet was really booming. I mean, we got internet in my house when I was like 8 or 9 years old. So, then it was like, okay, we could start getting acclimated to it, seeing how things work. And when I was 13, my dad said, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I'd love to be in this space somehow. Is there a way I can be a broadcaster or do something in regards to sports? And he said, well, you have the internet. Why not start a free blog? So I said, sure. I started sportstalkchicago1.blogspot.com, maybe. Still out there. You can go find it. All those posts are still up there. And then I had the last post saying, hey, we're redirecting to Sports Talk Chicago. I posted on there for a month. I got 500 page views, which, not a lot, but for a 13-year-old, I was like, wow, it's a lot of people who actually tuned into this, looked at this random website. All of them were just articles, 250 to 500 words about current Chicago sports news, some opinions mixed in there as well. I remember one of my first hot takes ever was Junior Lake going to be the next Yasiel Puig? I think we can both say that both were wrong. But it still generated some viewership. And then my dad said, well, hey, you got something going here. Why don't we make you a website? We'll get a domain name. I have a family friend who kind of, fiddles in that area of expertise, knows a lot about it. And we looked up domain names, and Sports Talk Chicago was a real domain name, still out there. So we were like, pounce on it right away. Let's get it because that's a great name. So we got that done in August of 2013. So now, nearing the 8-year anniversary of Sports Talk Chicago. And that's kind of how it all started. I wanted to be in the industry. And as a young kid, you're not going to be at ESPN at 13 years old. You're not going to be on TV at 13 years old. So what do you have to do? You have to blaze your own trail and get reps in by yourself, but no one else is willing to give them to you, obviously. So I was able to start at that age. And, fortunately, I've been on a great journey so far to where I am today.
Well, that's really incredible, Jon. And you must be so lucky to have a good dad saying, hey, I hear what your dreams are, and let me put that into fruition right away. And you don't really hear about a lot of kids at the age of 13 saying, hey, I want to be a broadcaster. I know that you played also high school baseball since we got some recruitment from collegiate baseball as well. So it's pretty incredible that you had that dream you wanted to do at such a young age.
Yeah, I was fortunate, that he supported it. My dad really wanted to do it, and it didn't work out for him. So I think he kind of saw a little bit of, him in me when I was getting into it. And he said, well, it's a different era, internet, more connections, more ways to get your foot in the door versus before. He was in radio in like the 80s and 90s. And you had to sit outside in the office and see if a program director would walk out of the office and hand him a tape, right? Or like put it in the mail and see if they ever got back to you. Now you can send an email, you can post it on social media. More people are willing to see it. So he saw that. And obviously I did too, of course, as the years have gone by. So, it's just a different era. And fortunately, things are somewhat working out at this point, which is great.
Yeah, I will say, just as someone who's also in the sports broadcasting industry and the sports journalism industry, it is so much easier just to send an email instead of interviews that way. And there's so many websites now where you can look for potential jobs, like Indeed or Teamwork Online. So it is nice how accessible it is.
It is. It's really nice because it gives more people opportunities. And I think a lot more opportunities have come too, just because of the fact that, the internet is here, right? Like before, if you're not working at CBS doing Sunday night or, the Sunday football slate, well, then you can't get into it. Now there's podcasting, interviews, different series, streaming platforms. There's so many different ways to be involved and actually make a decent living off of it. It's just a matter of, finding the right opportunity, have it come your way and take advantage of it.
And you definitely did take advantage of your opportunities too, because your work with freelance sports writing and play-by-play broadcasting while in high school allowed you to be named the best student broadcaster in the country in 2018 by the NFHS network. And for those of you who don't know, NFHS stands for National Federation of State High School Associations, which lay out the regulations for athletic competition at the high school level. But Jon, what did winning that award mean to you?
Oh, it meant a lot to me because I started at BJA-TV at my high school when I was a freshman. It's one of the reasons I was compelled to go to my public high school. I was going to actually go to private school. My parents wanted me to. And there was an article in this old newspaper that I used to write for called the Tinley Junction that kind of profiled the whole club and said, hey, there's this club. They're not really well known, but they do broadcasts and all that stuff. So I went to Andrew, and I was a freshman. It was in October, so I missed a couple of football games. The first football game I did, and I'll never forget, I was doing color commentary, and I stayed for all 4 quarters. I was supposed to switch after 2, but I stayed for all 4. I don't know how I pulled that off as some idiot freshman, but it worked. And the game went to overtime, and Andrew won on a walk-off touchdown run by a running back named Alex Cusimano, who I don't know what he's doing now either. But the point is, at the time, it was a really epic moment. And I just thought, wow, like this is a sign. I got to keep going. This is unbelievable. So by 2015, I was the lead man. I only had to wait 1 year, and I was the lead broadcaster at my high school in 2015 at 15 years old. In 2016 for NFHS and 2015, I was actually named a finalist in that category. So in 2017-18, when, the awards came out, I'm like, man, I really hope I get it this year. Like, past 2 years I've been a finalist. What do I got to do to finally win the award? And, fortunately it went my way. So it was really cool. Remember my high school principal actually did like a little ceremony for me. We were doing like a end of the year senior night thing, like a scholarship thing where they gave out some scholarships. And I was given a partial scholarship for my academics. And then he said, oh, Jon, wait. I was on stage like, hey, wait. I'm like, oh, what is it? And he presented the award to me on stage. I didn't even, I didn't know it came in. I knew I won, but I didn't know it came in. I still have it over there on my nightstand. So that was really nice of him. It was a good gesture. And, hey, it was really nice to win. It obviously doesn't define me. I've done a lot of other things besides the award. But, it was really cool. It made me just feel good about where I was going, the direction I was going in. I'm a senior. I'm just about to start college. I went to a school, and I'm still going to a school that isn't necessarily a broadcasting school. So, it was nice to just be reassured that, you're continuing to go on the right path. Everything will be fine. So it was a nice award.
It just seems like every step of the way, you're just ahead of the curve. You started, as you said, making your own blog at the age of 13. And really almost right when you came to high school, you started taking over with the broadcasting that you were doing, which is phenomenal. So, it makes complete sense why you're able to win this award. And that, once again, that's such a nice gesture that your principal was able to do and say, here, let me get this award to you right after the scholarship.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. And, I appreciate the compliment. I just try to be as ambitious as possible and as persistent as possible, too. I mean, that's just a life lesson. That's not even a sports media lesson. If you're ambitious and if you at least work hard and don't just sit around saying, oh, I wish something could be handed to me. Well, nothing's going to be handed to you. You have to work your butt off and get reps and get better. And, eventually something will come your way if you work hard and show effort.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like you've taken this strategy into the University of Chicago because you said it wasn't as much of a broadcasting school, and you're also an economics major as well, but everything else you do on the side is with broadcasting. So I guess what I'm trying to say is what made you decide to go to UChicago?
Yeah, it was a couple of things. Number one, location was nice. It's nice to be around at home. And actually, they're going to let me stay remote for my senior year. I'm graduating early anyway. So they're really flexible with me, and they treated me very well. I could have gone to Northwestern. I got into Northwestern just like I got into UChicago. And I said, you know what? If I go to Northwestern, this is nothing against them. but you're going to be another number. There are a lot of other people in your position who are going to be getting reps too, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if I go to UChicago, I'm going to be the only guy. Sure enough, I was. The first day I moved in, I was doing public address announcing for the football games, and by the second football home game, I was in the broadcast booth already. And then freshman year, I became the lead play-by-play man for baseball. Freshman year, I did some play-by-play for basketball, and I also did color for basketball with the baseball head coach there, John Fitzgerald, who's been a great mentor. He used to call Loyola Chicago basketball games for 16 years on the radio and on the local Comcast Sportsnet affiliate here. So he's a pro's pro. I've gotten to learn under him, and then I still get opportunities on top of it. And it was a really good fit. I knew I'd get reps. They have a radio station there. I hosted on it for 2 years before the pandemic, and I was the only sports station on the airwaves, and it was an hour-long show, and there were no commercials. So it's, talk about losing your voice and trying to be going for an hour straight, and I did, and it was fun. We had guests on. The guests I get on my radio program now, same guests, same caliber of guests I would have on. So I got a lot of opportunities. They actually funded some of my broadcast equipment, my mic, my headphones, my new computer, my Rodecaster. I was all funded by a grant from a student group at UChicago. So, they have been very supportive of what I've done. At the same time, I'm getting a great education, fortunately. I would hope that I won't be unemployed after I leave the school with that degree. So, everything has gone very well. They've treated me very well, which I'm very grateful for. The workload is very tough. And, there are times where it's like, man, why'd I do this? But there are other times where it's like, it's going to pay off, and I'm almost there. So, might as well finish it up. But no, they've been generally good. It's been a good school to go to.
I would say that the two of us actually have a lot in common because, for example, I go to a D3 school at Allegheny College. And originally out of high school, I wanted to become a professional baseball player. Now, that didn't work because I'm only 5'3" tall and couldn't really throw a fastball more than 74 miles per hour or so. So it was a good reason for me to leave that industry. But at Allegheny, for example, I'm really the only guy who's really serious about doing broadcasting. So I work in the athletics department as an SID worker. I broadcast for the baseball team. Might be the first broadcaster in the school to be able to go on the road to help broadcast games. We're trying to get that set up next year too. So it is really interesting because a lot of people, of course, who are up-and-coming broadcasters want to go to the biggest school they can, but they also might get lost in the headways because they have so much competition. But for people such as you and me, we kind of had this clear path that we were able to get our reps and start to make our name in the industry.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And this is for anybody watching or listening who might be in college or might be a high school senior trying to figure out where to go. Do whatever is going to be best for your career. Because look, I'm not trying to brag, but I have a name for myself. I didn't go to Northwestern. I didn't go to Syracuse, right? If you have the ambition and you are willing to blaze your own path and you're willing to check the ego at the door and not say, oh, I went to Syracuse, instead say, oh, hey, I went to a smaller school, but here are my reps. Here's my demo tape, and it's pretty damn good. Well, that's going to make a big difference because in the end, you could go to a great school, and that'll help a little bit for sure. There's networking opportunities, no question. But if you can at least show that you have good reps and that you've grown and that you actually are getting opportunities and not producing or running graphics for 4 years, well, that's going to make a difference too. So I would say do whatever is best for you when it comes to reps. That's the number one. I've been told that countless times from people in the industry, from some of the people I talk to a lot. Fitzgerald, Coach Fitz is another guy who is really helping. He told me the same thing. He said, you know what? Get your reps. It doesn't matter if it's the biggest place in the world. It doesn't matter if it's not D1. It doesn't matter if it's, a smaller league or a smaller team. At least you're getting reps. You have demo tape. That's what matters more than, oh, I went to this big school.
At the end of the day, it's just all about working on mechanics too, because if your mechanics are sound and your voice sounds good, then it'll come too. And obviously you talk about the hard work and dedication that you put into your work, or really just any aspiring broadcaster do that and getting your name out there, being so accessible to the internet. Well, then you should be able to find yourself an opportunity no matter where or what college you go to.
That's exactly it. Right. I mean, if you work hard enough and if you do your own things, if you trailblaze yourself and not depend on a program, right? Like, oh, I'm depending on this program from this big school versus, you know what, I'm just going to start a blog on my own and I'm going to learn myself. I'm a self-taught podcaster. I had to learn the software. how to produce, how to book guests, how to build relationships. All those are life lessons too. That's not like, oh, a podcasting lesson. Building relationships is a life lesson. I got to learn that on my own versus, oh, here's how you do it in school. Learn from a book. You can't learn broadcasting from a book. You got to do it yourself. So that's why I think it's very important that, do what's best for you and make sure you get your rep. That's the main lesson of this whole thing.
And it's interesting too, because the way that you market yourself and the way that broadcasters and podcasters have to market themselves, they have to, as we talked about, they have to reach out to other people. And you were very fortunate enough, and for good reason, to have a wide variety of guests, including NFL Hall of Famers, Jerome Bettis and Warren Sapp, as well as comedian George Lopez and former Trump administration official Sean Spicer. So how were you able to book these type of guests and get them on your show?
It's a lot about just persistence. A lot of these guys are actually very easy to get a hold of. It's just a matter of, do you want to look for them? You could find, stuff, emails, LinkedIn, in their Twitter bio, stuff like that. And once you eventually build a relationship with these guys, then you can just start texting them and saying, hey, you're free next week. You want to come on? You're free in a couple of weeks. Want to come on? So, I don't even email my guests anymore. I used to send out 60 emails a week, 60 emails a day at some points. I'm not kidding. You can go back and look. At some points, it was 60 emails a day to try and find guests. Now I've gotten to a point where, I've been established. I have relationships with a lot of people. I could just shoot a text and say, hey, you want to come on this week? Yep. Okay, great. There's a guest. Hey, you want to come on this week? Perfect. Let's go. So, yeah, it all started with just a lot of research. LinkedIn really helped. Actually paying attention to social media bios, and actually gets you a lot of places. When they say contact this person for inquiries, well, if you do, chances are they actually respond. It's just a matter of actually sending out the email. People don't like to cold call or cold email, but for me, that's the only way I've gotten all these guests on. So, you be the judge, but I think it's worked out very well.
And I would say that it almost sounds very easy enough to do so, about just putting in the persistence of emailing them out, going to their social media bios. And then once you've established yourself like you have, then it becomes easier and you're able to just keep getting more and more elusive guests.
That's exactly it. It's all about relationship building. It's the same idea. And that's a life lesson. It's not a work lesson. It's a life lesson. You build relationships with somebody, it'll be easier for them to come to you. So, and I'm not trying to be all emotional, but I'm saying in general, if I talk to somebody and I have them on 2 times and then I text them, and they're going to remember who I am. They're going to know, hey, great interview last time. And they're going to say, I'd love to come on again. Versus, oh, you had me on 4 years ago. I don't remember. Or, oh, this is the first time. I don't know who you are. I'm not going to give you the time of day. So It's all about relationship building and making sure that, you cater to the guests' needs. A lot of times when I have somebody on, I'm not just having them on for my sake. I want to do something for them too. Sometimes I'll plug a product for them, one of their new sponsorships. I just had Jose Canseco on to plug his new, hitting thing. Who knows if that's going to work, but whatever. It's a new invention that he has called the PX4040. So I plugged it and I asked him, how'd you invent it? How to come up? What's the idea? Will this be legal? That's a pretty important question when it comes to him. But the point is, I did that too, to make sure that next time he remembers, hey, this guy plugged my product. That was really nice for him. I definitely would love to come on with him again. So stuff like that. It's all about relationship building, keeping contacts, and, making sure that everything works out in that.
And that makes a lot of sense. Just, it's kind of how it's mutual respect at that point, where you're helping them out, they're helping you out. And then just, as you said, relationship building. And you've talked about how you brought a couple of guests on back once again, and have them recurring guests on your show. Is there a specific favorite guest you've had that come onto your podcast?
This is so funny. This is like the 3rd time I've been asked this question in the past month, and the answer is going to be the same. There's an article coming out on me like next month. They asked me this, so many things. So I got 3. Jose Canseco, Warren Sapp, and Mike North. Obviously, Canseco is just outrageous. You never know what he's going to say, and he's made news. I've gotten picked up a couple of times because of the things he said on my show. His hatred for ARod is hilarious. I find it super funny. So he's fun. Warren Sapp is just comical, and he's outspoken too. A lot of opinions on the current NFL state, but a lot of opinions too on when he played, and it's really funny. And then Mike North, I don't know if any people I don't know if this audience may know. I don't know who your audience is, but I assume it's pretty young. No one probably knows who Mike North is. Chicago radio legend. WSCR, the score here in Chicago, began in 1992. It was the first ever sports talk station. He was the first ever host on that station. He built it up, became a millionaire, $1 million per year man. He was huge. He also went to Fox Sports Radio and actually hosted mornings on Fox Sports Radio before Clay Travis was hired. So he was the morning guy there on the 360 plus stations. Now he does some stuff for ESPN 1000, does a couple of different things. And he was always known for being outspoken and just very funny. And every time I have him on, there's always a laugh. There's always reaction. His Bears opinions get people so heated. And that's what I love. He is just a hoot. He's hilarious. And he's also been very helpful. I mean, this is a guy who's, 70 years old, half retired, and he always makes time to come on my program. Every time I text him, he's like, when do you want me to come on? Like, let's make it happen. When do you want to do it? So really nice of him to make all that time for me and to help me and even promote some of my stuff. He follows me on Twitter. He'll retweet some of my stuff. The guy's some followers. Hey, that's nice of him to do. Doesn't need to do that. So he's an all-around great guy, too. Those are my top 3.
Well, that's all for very good reason. They all have their own charm and appeal for sure. I know Jose Canseco out of those 3 the best, of course, because I'm mostly into baseball. And I actually also really dislike ARod, too. I know you can see maybe my Yankee shirt that I'm wearing right now, but I used to grow up a big ARod fan, and after the biogenesis scandal, I just totally disliked him because I'm like, well, he cheated again and was very detrimental to the Yankees in that capacity. So I'm kind of curious, and I'll have to go back and listen to your podcast with him, but what did Canseco say about ARod and why he doesn't like him?
Well, I guess it's such a stupid. It has to do with, I guess ARod was like hitting on his wife, and I guess supposedly they had an affair and caused a divorce for him. And I guess Jose claimed that when ARod came into the league, Jose gave him advice on how to go about himself. Jose claimed that he told ARod to go to the Rangers, and then ARod went and got that record-breaking extension, the 10-year, $252 million. So he's like, why is he being ungrateful? Why is he not talking to me anymore after all that I did for him? And now I hate him and, I want to fight him and all this stuff. So I would pay to see a boxing match. That's something I would pay to see. Like, I don't pay for UFC too much. I really don't pay for WWE. I don't do any of that. But that's a fight I would actually pay money to watch if ARod somehow actually publicly acknowledged Jose, number 1. And number 2, then said, let's fight. Jose told me, he's like, you should get ARod on your show. And then you can ask him, why are you avoiding Jose Canseco? That'd be awesome. And I know that would make news, but I have no way to contact ARod. So we'll have to see. Who knows?
Well, I do hope that he would eventually come onto your podcast, first of all. But yeah, that's hilarious. And just knowing ARod and seeing what he's been in the media just his entire career, this doesn't sound all too surprising. He just seems like he burns a lot of his bridges along the way. So that's just hilarious to hear about.
Yeah, no, he's just always funny, Jose, because he doesn't care. And it's always like similar, like he'll talk about new stuff, but it always goes back to the same thing. Like, I hate ARod, or I want to fight this guy, like a different guy, or I'm getting better with, my surgery. I'm going to be better next time. Like, because obviously everyone remembers his 12-second fight with Barstool and that. So he's just always funny. But he's also, he's been nice to me. I know sure he's had problems and, he does whatever he does off the field. I don't know and I don't want to know. But with me, very nice guy, always gives me a good time, actually remembers who I am, retweets my stuff even. Well, so he's a really fun guest for sure.
I'm very happy to hear about that. And you've had a surprisingly well-rounded number of guests. I mentioned earlier how Sean Spicer, former Trump official, was on your show. And I remember you saying once that, I think it was from an article I read, that the common theme of all your guests is that they're just interested in talking about sports. But how do you reach out to, I guess, someone that may not be in like the sports sector, like someone like a Sean Spicer or a comedian like George Lopez, for example?
Well, in those cases, we don't really talk about sports. That's more so profile interviews that I think my listeners will enjoy. So I don't have a political leaning. I'm not officially political at all. I've reached out to Democrats too, reached out to liberals and conservatives to both come on my show because I'd love to. Hey, it's cool to have a conversation with these people. These are different people. It'd be awesome. I've reached out to I reached out to the former President Obama. I reached out to AOC, for example. I've sent their team emails. I've reached out to Dick Durbin, who's a senator here in Illinois. Hey, come on my show. Why not? Let's talk about your career. Let's talk about what's going on. So, Spicer and Scaramucci, John Stossel, who's a libertarian reporter, they all agreed to come on, and I had them on. And if, someone else from the other side said, yes, come on, let's go, let's do it. So I like the storytelling aspect of it, because I think a lot of people see these people, even George Lopez, oh, he's a funny guy, or, oh, right wing, left wing, whatever. Well, let's talk about your story and what got you to where you are today, because I think a lot of people like to hear that, so they understand why they are who they are today. So I mean, I relish it personally. I always get even a little bit more excited when it's someone who's non-sports, because it's like, wow, number one, I can't believe they're coming on a sports talk show in Chicago. But number two, it's like, well, we could talk about your career. We could talk about what you're up to today. And, I think it'll do well. So that's kind of, the mindset. We do talk a little bit of sports. With Spicer, we talked a tiny bit about the Patriots and Red Sox. Trying to think of. With George Lopez, we talked a bit about the Raiders, because he's a big Raiders guy, and that's great. But a lot of it was centered around their careers and their journeys. And like George Lopez told me the story of how his character in his sitcom says, I got this, right? Like, he told me the story behind how that happened. That's cool. That's why I do that. That's why I have those types of people on. So, yeah, even Sean Spicer, when he came on and said, I asked him, hey, would you ever work with President Trump again? He said, definitely not. Well, that's kind of news. That's pretty shocking to me. So, like, that's stuff that I like to get out of people and see if it can make an impact or make some news. So that's really the whole thing behind it.
And I would say for your fans and your audience, that's what's really cultivating to them as well, because they don't really get to hear about those stories, and everyone's captivated by a good story, especially by someone who is a professional athlete or someone who's well known. So the ability that you have to draw it out of them is so impressive. So how are you able to keep this dialogue going with them?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's really hard to explain. It's taken me a long time. So I always prepare questions no matter who's coming on. It could be an NBA reporter. It could be Sean Spicer, right? It doesn't matter. I have a set of usually 20 to 30 questions that I have ready and prepared. Doesn't mean I'm going to ask any of them. It just means that that's a baseline. If I brain fart, if the conversation's going absolutely nowhere and it's a clunker of an interview, I can look down and I got questions ready. The majority of the time, this is all ad lib. I just have stuff ready in case. Now, that took me years to learn. Actually, I would say it took me even till this year to learn. Really, truthfully, if I'm being honest with you, because when I started the podcast in 2014, I got my first guest, Len Casper, in 2015. For those first 5 years, it was stick into the script. Stick into the script. I'm not veering off the script. I don't care what you say. I don't care if you offer up a fleeting thought. I'm not going to advance the conversation. And that's me growing. It was obviously very wrong, but that's me growing as a broadcaster and as an interviewer, really. So it took me a long time to realize, hey, don't be right on it like that. You could ad lib, you can say what you want. I try to do a good job of still, though, not speaking too much. I kind of go, I don't know if anyone here has listened to Dan Patrick. I'm a big Dan Patrick fan. He does not say much at all. It's kind of like, it's a very concise, to the point question. It's probably 10 words. And the other person, the interviewee, will speak for 2 or 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I hear a lot of people tell me the same thing. You do a good job at letting it breathe. And that's my philosophy when it comes to interviewing. Some people have other ones. I know a lot of people love to offer their own thoughts and say this and that, and that's great. And, it works for whomever it works for. But me, I'm all about letting the guest speak and then reacting to what they say. So in Jose's case, for example, when I had him on a week ago, he was talking about ARod, talking about why he hated him. Then I said, well, then he talked about, I helped him, I helped him in the league. I helped him get a house. I helped him go to Texas. I said, well, Jose, if you helped him so much, then why is he not talking to you? Then he proceeded to talk about, you should get him on and all this stuff, and you should ask him. Well, that was not a, question that I had in my head or had written down. That just came to me. It was just a conversation. I try to have, when I interview somebody, I try to have it be like I'm talking to one of my friends, and it's a conversation. And I'm for everybody listening, I'm not saying that's easy. It took me 5 or 6 years to actually master that. I'm being serious. From 15 years old to I just turned 21 in February. It took me till about then to start really having it sink in. And I'm still getting better. If I talk to you in 6 months, I'm going to tell you I'm actually better today than I was 6 months ago. Because I'm still not 100% there. I'm still not perfect at all by any stretch of the imagination. But I know I'm getting better. So that's kind of how it goes. I try to approach it as a conversation. I'm prepared. I got questions ready. Sometimes I'll defer to them when the conversation goes nowhere. I'll do a rejoin, say, hey, Jose Canseco here on Sports Talk Chicago, then go into a completely different question, and we move on to a new topic. But I try to have the conversation flow naturally by being prepared, yes, but then also ad-libbing when necessary. It's a really tough thing to explain. Only people probably in the industry would understand what I'm talking about, like you. But it served me well so far, and I'm still getting better too. So I'm not even saying I'm perfect. This is my advice, but at the same time, I'm not perfect either yet. I mean, I'm not on ESPN interviewing people either. So it's not perfect, but it gets the job done for now, and I'm going to keep evolving and growing.
Well, that's certainly the right mentality too. It almost seems like, for example, I gave you questions before this interview, and it's almost kind of like a checklist or a template. Really, it's like, all right, this is the questions I have. But obviously, if the conversation goes a different way, then that's where you go with it, because it is a conversation, and that's how you kind of get all these stories that you mentioned, how you get to hear more about what the interviewee wants to be talking about.
It's exactly it. No, you couldn't have said it any better. That's why when I looked at your questions, I said, okay, these are great. But I've already noticed you're asking different ones. Like, hey, you're flowing with the conversation. That's how an interview is supposed to go. That's the truth of an interview. And I'm not trying to sound preachy, because it took me 5 years to understand that. 5 painful years. And if you go back and listen to my podcast when I was 17 or 18, I cringe at them. And I'm like, that is ass. That is horrible. So I know what it's like. And I know it's very hard to break away from old habits. So I'm not condemning nor saying anything to anybody. I'm just saying that's the way I approach it. And it took me a long time to learn it too.
And another thing that really fascinates about you to me is that essentially you take on so much, and you're such a hard worker. I mean, you look at the economics major, anytime you take an economics major, whatever school you go to, it's a very difficult major. You also do your weekly Sports Talk Chicago podcast, and you reach out to so many people. You record a show on your school radio station, and you also do a lot of broadcasting for UChicago, and you broadcasted for the Crestwood Panthers for several years. So I understand everything you're passionate about, everything you take on, and you shoulder a larger load than most college students. So since you have all these responsibilities, do you have less time hanging out with friends or seeing family, or time for yourself away from broadcasting? And essentially, how do you balance everything with your busy schedule?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's hard. I'm not going to say it's easy. There are times, and especially this summer, to be honest with you, I have not seen my friends a lot. That's a choice I made. It's not that I don't like them. It's not that I hate being around them, but the pandemic really changed me, and not in a bad way, to be honest. I mean, when COVID happened and we were all in our homes for the first month or two, that kind of just set in, and that was my new reality. So I didn't miss seeing people. I didn't miss even being on campus for college at all. I got much closer to my family. Now I'm at home, and I see my family every day. Those are my friends now. And when I go to work. When I record my shows, I'm here in my bedroom. This is a backdrop. I'm here in my bedroom. This is my bed's right over there. When I need to go to a game, I go to a game, and I commit to it, and I'm ready to do it. I'm doing an econ project right now. That's another thing I'm doing. I'm doing 10 hours a week, helping out a professor with a research project on baseball economics. When I have to do it, it gets done. I put in the hours. I don't really have a social life anymore. I used to, and even then, it wasn't. Wasn't a big deal anyway. It was me just hanging out with a couple of friends twice a week and just going to someone's house and sitting in their backyard for a couple of hours and coming home. That was it. I didn't really do anything. And I don't do anything now. I mean, I pulled a lot of strings. Even my buddy had a birthday party a few weeks ago. And I pulled a lot of strings even to make sure I could go to it. Like I recorded, a couple of shows in advance and just to make sure I could go to that. So I am fully immersed in work. I'm fully immersed in my own family time with my family. I prefer that over everything. And I know we were talking about before we got on. That's why right now I'm kind of leaning towards more so the radio program, even than play-by-play broadcasting, because, I'll be frank, I can't see myself traveling for 12 hours by bus in the minor league program after I graduate college as a young kid. I love being here with my family. I love committing time to what I love to do, the radio program, videos, opinions, and I forged a good, footprint in that space. I forged a good footprint in play-by-play too, but now a lot more people know me for my radio program. So I'm kind of leaning towards that way just because I can't do it. It's not for me. For a lot of people, a couple of years ago, I would have said, sign me up. Let's go. Let's go on a bus ride. We'll spend a week in Sioux Falls or something. Let's have a good time. But now, as I really evaluate and as college is about to end for me and, the degree's coming, I'm sure job offers are going to be coming and all that stuff. I want to try and do what I can to stay with my family and to stay at home and to do what I want to do, but also make sure that I have enough time for the people who matter most, family, some friends here and there, but a very big emphasis on family for me.
And that's a good way to really go about it. I mean, this type of industry, wherever you want to end up, essentially, you always have to really immerse yourself in work, more so than other industries. This isn't a 9-to-5 gig, and then you call it quits, and then go home, you watch watch TV, and that's it. And then you maybe see some friends on the weekend. No, this is almost feels like it's 24/7 essentially. And then you have a few select people, like you said, your family and a couple of friends that you see. So that's really great that you're able to realize, hey, like this is where I want to be. This is where I'm comfortable with. This is where I'm happy with. So you mentioned a couple of times how you're graduating in March. You're finishing up your degree in UChicago. What does the future hold for Jon Zaghloul?
Great question. Who knows? I wake up each and every day wondering what it's. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I have a number of different ideas that I have. I mean, I could really go anywhere I want to go when it comes to this. I could use my degree and be a straight econ guy. I could be a sports business reporter because I have an econ degree. I could help out my professor and do sports economics. We're doing something really cool right now, a study about sports economics. Maybe I could work in an MLB front office. Maybe I get my own radio program. Maybe I can monetize my own program and make enough money off it. Maybe I could contract work and do what Ariel Helwani's doing, work for a couple of different places, collect different paychecks, and be stable that way. My point being is, I really don't know. There's so many opportunities out there. I've had talks with a number of distributors already about my radio show. I've been talking with distributors since I was 19 years old about possibly taking on my show. Nothing's materialized yet, but you know what? That's because technically the timing wasn't right. I was still a college student. I got to finish up school before I could have a serious talk with people because they're going to be wondering about commitment, and rightfully so. So, I mean, there are a lot of different, I could still do play-by-play. I'm going to have a reel, I think a good one, especially with this summer being my third year with the Panthers. I could put something together. Maybe I could, land a cool job when it comes to that. So the door is really open. I really don't know what I'm going to do yet. The good thing is there are options, and it's not like I'm unemployable. There are a lot of options out there for me to go. It's just a matter of what's going to show itself and, what's going to show itself at the right time. And I'm confident that, something will come around that's going to make sure it suits me, make sure it prioritizes my commitment to family, but also allows me to do what I want to do and at least make a stable living. So I don't know. I wish I could give you a for-sure answer. I wish I could tell you, talking to this company, we're going to do it, but I don't know yet. So we're going to have to wait and see how everything plays out.
There seems to be some beauty in that, though, how kind of the world is your oyster, and that wherever you end up, well, you're still giving the sports world, you're going to choose what's right for you. And you'll have a lot of people asking, and you already have, about where you're ending up and what you want to do after college. So that's, once again, really impressive.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's great to, to have that sort of freedom, to be able to not be picky, but, just at least weigh your options correctly and try and find something that fits what you want more than, unfortunately, there are some people who want to be in this industry, and that's great, but they don't have experience, right? So like when you graduate college, you need to find something right away that's going to give you experience. And that might be being a production assistant, right? Or it might be being behind camera, working under somebody, or being a content producer, but content producing, not being on camera, being behind the scenes, doing social media. I know a lot of people who graduated with, not much experience, and they became content producers or like production assistants. And there's nothing wrong with that because eventually you're going to get up to the point where you want to be. Like that's a starter position. But I would hope that in my case, because I started so early, maybe I won't necessarily have to do that. But, again, we're going to have to see. That's why I know, I'm sure everything's going to be fine. You are right. It's nice to kind of have that uncertainty because there's so many different directions I could go. I could do multiple. Who said I can't do multiple jobs either, right? And do work for this company, work for that company, write a weekly article, do something like. So there are a lot of different ways it could go. A lot of different things I could balance because if I could balance UChicago and what I'm doing now, I'm sure I could balance a couple of jobs. So, we'll just have to see how it all plays out. But I'm sure everything will be okay. I would hope. I think everything will be fine.
You've put yourself in a really good position for your future, and you already have so many accolades in your career. What's some advice you have for maybe a young, inspiring broadcaster? Let's say around the high school level, maybe someone who's just entered college and wants to get into broadcasting. What advice do you have for them?
Blaze your own trail. Do whatever you can to blaze your own trail. Do not be dependent on a program or on someone else that isn't yourself to get the job done. I know a lot of people, even like we see it professionally, right? We see it professionally. Like people are so dependent on their company that they work for in order for them to make out and be okay. The one example that keeps coming to mind recently is like Ariel Helwani, how he left ESPN because he said, I'm done with this. I'm not dependent on you anymore. I am big enough to do something on my own, work at 4 different companies and be okay. Right. But a lot of people are very dependent on the company. It's right. It makes sense. Oh, big name, ESPN, Fox, or whomever it might be. My suggestion is blaze your own trail, make your own content, speak so that way no one muzzles you. Because that's a big thing too now. For example, if I work at the radio station that's the flagship of the Yankees and the Cubs, well, chances are if I want to criticize the Yankees or the Cubs, I'm going to be told you better not. And that's a joke because I want to speak my mind. What I got to be scared of who's going to call the Cubs GM or someone from Cubs management saying, oh, that's our radio station. Your guy better not be saying that. That's why I would never want to work for, a team that owns a network, right? Because that means you can't say what you want to say. And that's not me. That's not my brand. And a lot of people like me because people told me you speak the truth. Well, that's correct because I'm not loyal to anybody. No one is paying me. No one is telling me you have to say this. My radio program is not on the same station as Cubs baseball or White Sox baseball. So blaze your own trail. Start your own blog. If you need reps, do it yourself because no one's going to hand anything to you. That's just a fact. And that doesn't mean everyone hates you. It just means that what's the incentive for them to hand something to you when you haven't proven anything? So start your own thing and get started on your own, build your own network. And then you could be in a position where you could start being picky about jobs and you could take what's best for you, not what you have to do. You don't have to be a production assistant if you have enough experience and you have a good network of guests who can help you or put in a word for you or could at least come on your program if you want to do something on your own. Clay Travis and Dan Levitard are both in that position today, whether you're right or left. Clay just sold his company to Fox. Dan Levitard started Meadowlark Media, left ESPN. He's doing outstanding. Both of those guys realize I don't need the company. I can do it myself. That's the important thing. So it doesn't mean I'm saying I'm Clay Travis or Dan Levitard. I know it's a very smaller scale, but the concept still applies. If you start early and start by yourself and learn, be self-taught and learn on your own, chances are you're going to get the opportunity you want because you have more experience starting at a younger age.
And that really is great advice too. And just someone, I'm sure you've seen this also with the Crestwood Panthers, but you have to play politics a lot in this industry. And the ability to being able to speak your own mind and not being muzzled, that's huge. That's what really everyone wants to do. So it's all the more important to trailblaze your way and make your own brand and find out who you are as someone in this sports journalism industry.
Exactly. And you have to find out who you are. That's a great point, Adam. I mean, everyone knew me for my interviews for the longest time because my podcast was just interviews. I never gave a take on nothing. You couldn't get me to give you a take on anything. When I got to the radio at WCKG, Matt Dubio, my program director, great guy, he told me, say whatever you want and grow. This is your opportunity to grow. And I've grown. Now a lot of people know me for ridiculous takes. So be it. I don't care. People know me for the interviews and the takes. And, it allowed me to grow as a broadcaster, find more of my voice, right? If I go back and listen to myself from April 20th of 2020, when the radio program started, to today, my voice changed even more. Like it's been a year and it still changed, which is great. I've found who I am as a broadcaster and as a radio guy. I started YouTube, right? Like that wouldn't have started if I didn't have a reason to do it, which is the radio program and popular demand. People said, why can't we watch you? Well, now you can. So these are things that could happen to you if you put in the effort and if you work hard at a young age to try and get things going.
And we talked about extensively about the effort to put in just in reaching out, making your own brand, but kind of a behind the scene aspect, as simple as it sounds, is also working on your voice, creating the best voice you can as well. And I'll be honest, Jon, when I first heard him, like, wow, he sounds like he's 30 years old, already having this like podcast for like 10 plus years, really well known in the industry. And that's because you have a really unique voice. So I'm very curious, just as both a interviewer and as a fellow broadcaster, I'm sure the audience is too. What do you do for voice prep, and how have you gotten your voice that you have today?
Is puberty a correct answer?
I mean, it certainly helps.
I'm kidding. You could go back and listen to my shows when I was 14, and then you can laugh at me, and you'll be like, "Wait, that's the same guy?" What? But no, I don't really do much, to be honest with you. I really don't. I try to drink tea a lot. I'm a big tea drinker, actually. I don't even drink coffee. Coffee screws up my voice. I don't know why, but it does. So I drink tea twice a day, usually, with a lot of honey in it, actually. And I make sure sleep is actually very important for me. Might not be for other people, but it is for me. If I get 4 hours, for example, 5 hours, then try to do a show, I actually end up losing my voice or losing it quicker versus, I got my 7 hours, got my even 8 hours in some cases when I'm really tired. I could turn around and my voice will be crystal clear and ready. Takes me a couple of hours. Usually my golden rule is 3 hours before a broadcast, I have to wake up. So if I have Panthers game at noon, I have to be up by 9 because that's how long it takes me for my voice to warm up. Everyone probably knows what morning voice is. I have it very bad. I don't sound like this in the morning. I sound very mute and very quiet. But as the day moves forward, it warms up and it gets better. And I practice. What I usually do before a podcast is if I have an interview with someone at 11 a.m., I'll wake up at 8 a.m., I'll get ready. By 10 a.m., I'm ready. Then for the next hour, I'm warming up. Reading over my questions out loud like this in a radio, my regular voice, because I want to break the morning voice before I get on the air and start recording. So that's kind of my prep. So a combination of, I guess, natural puberty, growing, and tea drinking and sleep is very important too, and giving yourself enough time to warm up.
I'll still certainly argue that you do a lot of voice prep. I know you said you didn't do much, but I think tea drinking, reading your questions out loud, that's huge. And also just giving yourself enough time to get away from that husky voice that everyone has in the morning too. So that's voice prep in itself.
Oh, well, I don't know. That's nice because I know other people who do so much more. So I feel like mine's the bare minimum. Like I know people, I gargle and do this and that. It sounds like a superstition or a ritual. It's like, I don't know. I just wake up and I make sure I'm just up in time. And, I drink tea, and I don't drink tea during the day or like before a show. I just drink it whenever. I usually drink it after I broadcast in the afternoon and then at night before I go to bed. And that's it. So it's nothing, I don't know. It's nothing ridiculous or crazy, but I guess it gets the job done for now. So that's good.
And once again, it's just kind of like everyone has their own style. Everyone has their own brand, whatever kind of works out for the individual. Exactly.
I mean, some people are different. I know some people who can go on after 2 hours of sleep and they kill it. And that's great. But I need my sleep. If I don't get sleep, I end up actually losing my voice. If I need too many, like if I get 5 hours of sleep for 3 days in a row, and I'm broadcasting each one of those 3 days, I end up losing it completely. And I'm out for 2 days because I don't have my voice. So for me, sleep is important. But yeah, a lot of other people could be different. I know some people who drink tea 4 times a day. I know some people who've never drank it in their life, and they drink coffee every day, which is supposed to hurt your voice because it's caffeinated, but it works. So, it's different. Everyone's body is different. The way your vocal cords react everybody's way different. So, I can't blame you, but that's my method. So.
Well, I'm glad the method has worked out for you. And that was my last question for you as well. So, Jon, thank you so much for coming on again to the show.
Hey, thank you, Adam. Really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to the next time we chat.
Me too. And once again, thank you to everyone who tuned into this show. Once again, this is the Exit Velo podcast, and we hope you join us for our next rendition of the podcast.